They chose their king, their power was met, but we don't answer to Ottawa yet. No crown gave us what we've earned, just dirt and fire and lessons learned. Now the ground it shakes, the steel it groans, and Alberta walks alone. We ride sovereign steel through fire, through frost. We ain't the last, we're the line they lost. Alberta stands, never on its knees. A nation born in the forge of the free. From the rigs to the rails, the crops to the code, we lit their streets, we bore their load. They laughed at pride, they mocked the West, but freedom don't die, it just waits for the test. The cowboys ride, the farmers rise, 5 million strong under open skies. No leash, no lie, no foreign throne. This land is steel and it stands alone. We ride sovereign steel through fire, through frost. We ain't the last, we're the line they lost. Alberta stands, never on its knees. A nation born in the forge of the free.
Welcome. It's 7-Eleven Daily Summer with Bruce Show. I am so excited, so pumped to be here. What an amazing time to be alive. Are you with me on that? Oh my gosh, I am so excited to be going through what we're going through right now. It is quite an extraordinary time, and I appreciate you being here with me. And if you are, in fact, watching, make sure to share this out. We have got to wake up more Canadians. Make sure to wake them from their sleep. They are sleepyheads. Make sure to get this message out there. Share it out to your social media. Share it out to your friends, your family. We've got to wake more people up. So, as I say, thank you so much for being here. I am blessed that you are here with me, and I'm excited to bring on our guests for tonight. I have one person that's returning and another person that has never been here, but I think we're going to have an extraordinary conversation. So stick around while we get to that. Before I get to our guests, I always like to say thank you. Thank you so much to the people that have brought me here. Thank you to the local businesses that I love to support because they support us. One of them that I love to support is nuggetsacker.com. I am not your investment advisor, but I do suggest holding gold and silver, especially today. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but silver is definitely making a run. And I say protect your family's wealth by holding gold and silver. So you can call nuggetsacker.com at 1-866-644-2121. Tell them that Bruce sent you, and they'll make sure to take care of you. You can go right through my website as well. It's unscrewthenews.com. Go to the link for Nugget Stacker, and you'll get a bit of a discount because you could use a discount at $100 per ounce or a little over $100 per ounce today for silver. Yow, that's good stuff. All right. I'm going to get into unscrewing some news. Like I said, I'm grateful that you're here, that you're sharing this with me, but we are coming to you from the heart of the battle-ready nation of Alberta. We bring you truth and optimism. Our goal is to break free from the media, globalist, mind control. It is January 5th. Can you imagine that? 2026. This is episode number 247. And excuse me, episode number 247. I'm welcoming Paz Gomez and Fergus Hodgson. The book is When Crypto Makes Sense. And we're going to have her explain a little bit more about that. But they are both from Econ Americas, and they, especially Paz and definitely Fergus, they know South America like the back of their hand. Anyway, Paz Gomez is coming to us. I wanted to reach out to her anyway because she is a specialist in cryptocurrency. So I want to welcome both of them to Unscrew the News. Thank you so much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you both. Why do I not have both of you up there? There you are. Okay. Now I've got you all. All right. Thank you so much for joining me, you guys. It's a pleasure to have you. And I want to welcome Paz, you to Unscrew the News for the very first time. Thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, Bruce. Thank you for inviting me here.
It's wonderful to have you. And Fergus, the returning friend of Unscrew the News. Always good to have you, sir.
I've been loving the show, and the Food Professor episode was amazing. So if people haven't heard that one, go back and check it out.
Thank you. Yeah, I know he was awesome to have. Obviously, is very informative, and obviously prices around the world for our food is so critical at this time. There's a lot of people wondering what the heck is going on. I want to get into your book, Paz, here in 1 second, but I want to set the stage because obviously a big portion of why you wrote it, and it's right in the title. Let me just pull it up so make sure that I've set this right. But it's When Crypto Makes Sense, a guide to use use cases for liberty. So I'm going to bring it up here and just show everybody what we're talking about. So this is the book, When Crypto Makes Sense. But the part that I want to talk about is cases for liberty. And obviously at this time, and Fergus, you're in the United States, Paz, you're in Ecuador, I'm in Canada, and we're all experiencing the same tyrannical pressures and the spying on us, the CBDCs that are hopefully going to take over. That's what the globalists want. They want to have CBDCs so they can track and trace everything. Obviously, you wrote this book partially for liberty, and I know that when I read, sort of the background on what you were writing about, you talk about the ability to share funds and transfer funds. Do you want to give us a little bit of a hint of what you were looking to capture with the book?
Sure. Thank you, Bruce. Actually, the project of the book started with a series of 4 articles that were about how to use crypto in places that are like restrictive economies, right? So the first chapter or article that we published was how to circumvent currency controls, and this was actually based and done in the research of countries like China that we know what was going on, and also, for example, what happened in Argentina, and continues to happen because people got used to use cryptocurrency. Actually, if you ask to some Argentinian, how do you get a wallet? How do you exchange? How do you keep cryptos and things like that? They know more than even me that I have a master's degree, right? Because they are constantly using it.
Yeah.
And it is actually, it became part of the life. So with Fergus, we have been discussing, for instance, during a lot of time, like if we want to invest in crypto or not, when we believe that there is a lot of hype in the news and in the social media about crypto. But one thing that I have realized, and actually in Ecuador, we are a dollarized economy. So when you see people expecting to use crypto, maybe they say no, because even if the dollar is not necessarily the best option, it is good, it is stable. But if you go and see other countries like Argentina, like Venezuela, and other countries that have experienced difficult situations, it happened with Greece during their crisis.
Mm-hmm.
basically it became the best option, and they adopted it. So of course it can be an investment asset as well, with the knowledge and the understanding that it is risky, but I do believe that crypto has a lot of potential for providing freedom to people when you believe in these countries.
Mm-hmm. And Fergus, do you want to addition? Do you want to add to that? Yeah.
Yeah, as Paz said, we've been following cryptocurrencies since the beginning, mate. And we've obviously, just like you, we have an incredible affection for individual liberty. There's no doubt about that. We don't hide the fact. And so initially we started a series of, you might say, working papers or investigations into how you would go about using cryptocurrencies. Now, we touched upon this briefly in our book, Financial Sovereignty for Canadians, and Paz prepared those chapters. We had, I think, a couple on how to use it to evade censorship, for example. And we sought to consolidate these papers in precise topics. So, and once we'd collected about half a dozen of these, I thought, well, this really creates a more coherent story, a more practical book analysis, you might say. And so Paz has prepared that, and I'm very proud of the project. And because in particular, I'm concerned that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in this space. And we wanted to give a very sober, careful explanation without over-promising.
Right. Now, one of the things that I want to warn people that your book is not about, because you told me that this is obviously not what you're writing about, was the investment part of it. You're not
advising
on investing in cryptos. Really?
Paz, do you want to take that, Paz? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, actually it has a part. So the book is basically divided in 3 sections. The first one is explanatory, so you have the fundamentals. If you don't know that much or you want to clarify some concepts, you will have that in the book. Then you have a portion that mentions about investment. What I write and explain there is basically the features that crypto have that can be an advantage to invest. So there are 3, basically I divided in 3 pros and 3 cons of investing in crypto. And then I got to the use cases for liberty. And also there's an epilogue where I discuss this of what Fergus said, basically all the rumors and all the things that are there, and also this kind of debate between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash and what happens there. So there's like a comprehensive explanation there. There is also, I explain about how it's risky to invest in crypto, especially in Bitcoin, and what are the advantages for that. So there is information about there. In the part of the investment, it is very practical. So I don't want to make it more like theoretical or things like that. And in the other part, in the use cases for liberty, you will find practical portions, but also based on evidence. So for instance, we also mentioned the case of censorship, as Fergus mentioned, with the Canadian Freedom Convoy. And we explained what were the main applications and platforms that worked and how, and the platforms that didn't work.
Yeah. So Bruce, I mentioned just privately with you, and I'm not afraid to say it, that I personally am concerned about the use of cryptocurrencies as an investment vehicle. But we simply could not ignore the topic because it is on everyone's lips. Everyone is curious. And so we sought to give both perspectives. So the Steve Hanke perspective, he's a prominent economist in the United States, is that this is just a scam, basically, and get the hell out of it, stay away from it. And we've got Demelza Hayes, who is the top, let's say, cryptocurrency economics researcher, who thinks it's just the most precious thing on earth, and you need to get as much of it as you can.
Right.
And the big problem I have, and this is, the problem is, so first, cryptocurrencies are still very new, right? So only 15 years ago or 16 years ago now did Bitcoin come to be. So it's an incredibly new form of asset. And the second is that the basic fundamental of finance and valuation is the net present value of future income streams. And since cryptocurrencies do not have income streams, there's no way to value them in a conventional financial sense. And it's not like gold or other precious metals where there's a long-standing history. However, in saying that, as DeMalza would tell you, people who have invested in this have had incredible returns over the last 10 years. So it's very hard to look away from that. Now, if people want to look up a term that is relevant, I would say look up the greater fool theory. That is my particular concern, that we're assuming a fear of missing out and people just piling on forever, and it cannot go on forever. That's my personal concern. But Paz,
What was
do you want to answer? Yeah.
what was the term that you had said that you wanted that people should look up? The greater
fool theory. Yeah, we discussed this we mentioned it in the book. Yeah.
And Paz, did you want to say something? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I would also say that, for instance, one thing that that I mentioned in the book is the reason or the goal that you want to have in crypto, right? I believe that the crypto ecosystem is very useful for understanding more about finance, and actually it has been my own experience, because basically I started studying and understand and learning about crypto when I knew basically nothing from about finance,
Right.
and then I learned a lot. So I do believe that for having that experience, and also for having a portion, maybe a 5% or something like that of the portfolio, could work. Basically being money that you are like able to lose in some sense. But of course, we explained that, and I explained also the profile of the investor.
Now, I cannot remember, Paz, where this is mentioned, but we should distinguish here between holding crypto as an asset in your portfolio and crypto being used as a vehicle to access new investments. And my hope personally through this decentralized finance transition or revolution is that let's say private equity or many of these alternative investments will become available to a much larger audience and cut out many of the middlemen. And so that's not actually holding it. That's just the way that the whole blockchain ecosystem can make us access different investments, which to me is more exciting.
Actually, that is one of the use cases for Liberty, because like democratizing the access to investments, and also having more, it is not just because the people that cannot access, but also basically the whole world, it's digital and you can do it. So of course this can changes over time, the way we understand investments, and especially how they are regulated, and how this financial industry deals with the investors. So that is also very interesting.
Can I ask you, I want to switch gears a little bit away from the investing side of things, because I'm just thinking about the use cases and how interesting that is. And I'll give you the scenarios that I'm thinking about. So one of the things that I notice, and maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm on the mark here, but it seems like countries that are really oppressive, and it seems like countries that may not have a high standard of living, that it seems to really be flourishing. Like you said, Argentina, it was used a lot there. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but is that one of the things that makes it so transferable? And one of the other areas that I wanted to ask you about was, you don't have to worry about currency. Like, I don't have to worry about whether it's your Ecuadorian currency or if it's Norwegian currency or if it's Canadian or American, because we're just talking Monero or Ethereum or Bitcoin. It's almost universal. Can you speak to either of those or both of those?
You take that one, Paz. You got it? Yep.
Yeah. Well, of course, crypto has very solid use case when it comes with these kind of dictatorial countries in some ways, right? Restrictive economies, we can also say. Um, yes, these are, I mean, you can use just Monero, you can use just Bitcoin. However, even in these countries, of course, maybe when you have high inflation, the perception would change, but the volatility in price continues there. So, as you said before, for instance, governments were trying to impose and continue to impose the CBDCs.
Hmm.
So, an alternative to that has been, for instance, stablecoins. But there's a lot of centralization and kind of making them status quo. So, what actually happens is that most of these people change the majority or a large portion of the money to stablecoins. In some ways, that is good because they can then use the money and everything. But and that is this is one thing that we discussed in the book. It is not suggestible to have all the money in stablecoins because it loses liberty, right? It loses financial sovereignty. That is one thing. The other thing, yes, you can not worry about where the money comes, and this is also very important for freedom because in these countries, you usually talk that there are no many economic opportunities, that there is no privacy, for instance, and maybe you can access freelancing outside the country, or you can hide the financial information and avoid, I don't know, account freezing. So actually, these are the very very advantages of having crypto, especially
Hmm.
in those
Yeah.
countries.
Bruce, are you getting, is it raining where you
Yeah.
are?
No, it must be
Okay.
raining where Paz is.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. So now let me take that one, Bruce. In my opinion, two of the strongest cases for cryptos right now are, yes, circumventing capital or currency controls across national borders, and two, avoiding censorship. Okay. Now, Argentina is one of the strongest cases because they have a fixed exchange rate, which means the exchange rate is fake, and there are all sorts of discrepancies between what the exchange rate should be. So if you want to get your wealth or assets from Argentina to Spain or the United States, wherever you want to go, or Canada, you can cash out your assets into a cryptocurrency in Argentina and then transfer it without impediment, without tax, at the free market rate, and then collect and convert it when you get to your destination. And
Mhm.
so it is, yes. So to me, that is where you haven't had to say, oh, this is a great liberty vehicle. People just use it because it works. It
Yeah.
just is a very practical case. You don't have to promote it. Now, in terms of censorship, so wherever you see the greatest intimidation or censorship of people, especially the Canadian case is just a brutal one, of course, the Trucker or Freedom Convoy, which breaks
Yeah.
my heart, you know, where millions and millions of dollars were donated to that cause and then locked or frozen. And then, you know, even worse, people had their bank accounts frozen, which I still cannot process. So had people been holding Monero or another cryptocurrency, and this is the challenge that we need to really raise our literacy and get away from the centralized exchanges. That's what Paz was talking about, because there's been a little bit of a challenge in that, much like let's say the media of the internet, right? When the internet first arose in the late 90s, when we began to use it in the early 2000s, there was this big, very decentralized blogosphere. And now we're all on these centralized platforms like X or YouTube or what have you, and that makes us vulnerable all over again.
Right.
So that is what has happened with the cryptocurrency exchanges, that we're all, and the stable coins, where if we're all holding our cryptocurrencies on a centralized exchange, it's very easy for regulators to target and freeze. And so, you know, that's another challenge. So Paz does explain in the book how to hold it in cold storage, or do you want to explain that term, Paz?
Yes. Well, basically, is the same, right? You have these centralized exchanges are basically those that are act as like custodians, so like banks, and of course they have to follow up regulations and they have to follow up orders, especially by non-custodial tools. You can have, of course, exchanges, but also wallets, um, or cold storage that is basically outside the internet. And by having outside the internet, basically you have the keys, which are two cryptographical codes that provide access to that money, and in that way you have the complete control. This involves more responsibility because if you lose this information, you will lose your money. But uh, that's the benefit of custodial things. But basically, if you are suffering from censorship, if you are suffering from all these kind of risks, of course it makes sense, and you will be responsible of your money.
Can I mention one thing about what you're talking about? Let's say somebody that's maybe my age or a little bit older. There's a lot of concern about, oh my God, it seems like way too much for me to understand. Do you
Yeah.
know? Do you hear that? And I'm not gonna plug it, but I will just say that there are companies, and so Bow Valley Credit Union. I don't know if you saw this, Fergus, but Bow Valley
Yeah.
Credit Union, the credit union here in Alberta that we're going to, obviously be giving a lot of our attention to. They have started a crypto. Was it called a crypto gateway? And it's a way for people that aren't really familiar with those processes to get in and buy some cryptos. You know what? I think it's somewhat a good idea to have that opportunity for people to dip their toe into the pool that might be too afraid to do it. Because I think having some is not a bad thing. I don't have a lot of crypto, but I do think that it's important to understand the process. And so
Yeah.
I've started myself, but and as far as cold wallets and that sort of thing, I don't know. So obviously in the book you get into the detail to try and help people to understand that process. Is that right, Paz?
Yes, that is basically the part of the introductions, which I tell is more like the fundamentals, is like
Hmm.
less narrative but important for this. And also, yes, and I believe that it is inevitable to have centralized and user-friendly solutions. In the decentralized ecosystem and initiatives, there are becoming more user friendly, but it is different and difficult because of how the technology works. So yes, that is a problem. But what we have seen also is this, so that basically when you have the need, you are going to use it. It's like
Yeah.
when we were in the COVID-19 scenario and the economic shutdowns and everything, a lot of elderly people became to fintech solutions and they were not using them before. I am
Right.
talking about like traditional fintech, but it's basically the same. And the same happened, for instance, recently in Bolivia when they ran out of dollars of
Really.
their money and from gasoline. So it was like a crisis. And basically, empanadas stores were offering promotions if they pay in cryptos, and it was like very like
Yeah.
the empanada store in any corner.
Yeah.
So I believe that it is also feeling the necessity too. And as you say, of course, if you don't have that necessity, that like emergent necessity, maybe it is about facilitating the things. And yeah, banks can provide solutions, but basically what I try to say in the book is that use those solutions, but also educate yourself to provide more protection to the money when you are not using it,
Yeah.
and then you can have these cold storage tools and things like that.
I have to share.
Yeah.
I have to share a story just after, obviously during COVID and when we had the shutdown here in Canada, and they froze accounts. I know personally, and I'm sure many Canadians did the same thing. I realized that I couldn't count on the banks, and I couldn't count on the blood sucking banks for our safety, security, and our family. And so obviously I learned about all of these technologies, and I learned obviously about, having things outside of the system. But you're right. If we are prepared ahead of time, and this is definitely a part of liberty that we need to be teaching ourselves and making sure that we are as knowledgeable as possible in the options. So wake up, Canadians, wake up Americans, wake up everybody that's liberty minded. Make sure that you're paying attention to Paz's book, When Crypto Makes Sense.
Yeah.
Sorry, was there something else that you want to say
Yeah.
about that?
I mean, Bruce, I mean, I really think you touched upon an important point, that many people are intimidated, but in the same way they were intimidated of social media, right? So, and much like you have been so devoted to getting your message out, right? So yes, of course you do have X, and I assume you have Facebook. I hate Facebook, but right, we've got all these different platforms. You have taught yourself how to use Rumble and Substack, and
Right.
I've lost track of all the different platforms, right? So it's very hard to unscrew the news down.
We're going to keep trying, that's for sure.
You're probably on BitChute too. I don't know. And
I'm on BitChute. Yeah, BitChute, and I'm on CloudHub, and I'm on yournews.com, and all of these other platforms.
Amazing. So just, you have shown how, yes, you learned initially, maybe you, just like everyone, you get familiar with YouTube or whatever, and I don't even know if you're still on YouTube, but I see these centralized, trading centers or whatever. Yes, they are regulated. I think that the big problem is that the big hope when we first learned about cryptocurrencies is that we thought it would be disruptive, right? That it would really rock the status quo and disempower the central banks.
Oh yeah.
And if we just go back to the same, I mean, Canada, the banking system is so centralized. If we could just go back to the half a dozen banks in the entire country, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to the credit unions. Well, what's changed? Nothing, right?
Nothing.
So
yeah.
My hope is, as you referred to, that in the long run, we will basically move away from centralized regulated institutions to basically institutions that go beyond nationality and will disrupt this regulatory power. And the smart nations like Switzerland already see the writing on the wall and are seeking to be a haven for the world to go to. And I think Canada right now, Canada does have a relatively stable and respected financial sector, but I think that will come under competitive pressure.
I would have to disagree. Like,
Go ahead.
in amongst the libertarian type mentality, I think that people don't believe that the bank structure is reliable or sound. It is.
No, I was referring to the secondary markets, the stock market and the like. Yeah. But of course, that will be restructured going forward. Yeah, go ahead.
For sure. No. I'm just speaking from a freedom-minded perspective. Again, it's really frustrating where they've painted us into the corner as far as Canadians, and especially Western Canadians. Anyway, I don't want to talk about that much longer, because I want to focus on, again, liberty, and we were going to touch on the probably the most explosive information or the explosive news that came out of Venezuela most recently. Do you mind talking about how that might impact people that are interested in cryptocurrency, and maybe a use case for that in regard to Venezuelans or anybody that's outside of Venezuela but looking into what's going on there?
Yeah, sure. Well, Venezuela, as well as these restrictive economies and dictatorial countries, is one of the countries that uses crypto a lot. There is, of course, the government has created facilities for continue using dollars because they needed the dollars. So remittances and things like that are the way that they got it. But there's a lot of people using crypto. This is disruptive there because, I mean, is what I told you about Ecuador, right? Here in Ecuador, you have people using cryptos, accumulating cryptos, but a lot of people is comfortable with the dollar. because it works. Maybe the same will happen in some way in Venezuela if things got stable, but uncertainty, that is what they are living right now, can also provide them the not the opportunity but also the necessity to protect the money they have in some different currency that is not the dollar, that is not the bolivares, whatever. So in the short term,
Yeah.
maybe crypto is going to have more relevance there. In the long term, maybe it will depend on the outcomes. So if stability comes, maybe the usage will decrease, but if not, it will continue. So it's the same when you see the moment and the opportunity to use. I think that it happens. And also one thing, there were some kind of initiatives happening in Venezuela some time ago, like for instance the some Bitcoin miners when it was not that huge, the industry, because of the low cost of the energy. Then of course this was shut down because of energy shortages and things like that. But depending on what happened, there is knowledge about crypto in Venezuela because they use it, and maybe it can become one of the industries, not just cryptocurrencies, but blockchain and crypto-based applications can become one of the things that can also provide new economic opportunities to the country if eventually some peace and some stability arrives to the country.
Yeah. It's just so difficult to know right now what is going to happen in Venezuela. It's changing by the day, basically. But first, during this period of insane inflation in Venezuela of, let's say, beyond 100% per year, that, of course, has given a huge incentive to spend or get rid of your bolivares as quickly as possible and hold either dollars or cryptocurrencies. So that has given just a use case, let's say, of wealth protection. And
can I stop you there just so I understand this? So because this is how I'm envisioning it, but so the inflation is so vast and so quick that you want to buy crypto as soon as you have it. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. You don't want to,
you need to get out of it. Yeah.
And look, I went there. I mean, it's hard to convey the absurdity because I was there in 2014 and 2015, and I went to pay someone for an article, I think $150, and basically had to bring a briefcase full of cash to pay for that. Right.
Wow.
And everybody is just trying to get rid of it. And then the problem is too that they didn't have numbers or denominations of notes big enough to pay for anything. So you'd be there just counting forever to pay for anything.
Wow.
And at the time, it was difficult because I couldn't use my bank cards. Otherwise, I'd be scammed at the official exchange rate. So I needed to use cash to exchange to bolivares and make the payment. So yes. And what happens too is that people begin denominating major purchases in dollars, even if they're not supposed to. So there's a de facto dollarization that goes on. They use dollars for the convenience and, let's say, just the familiarity.
And when you're saying dollars, you're saying US dollars is what you mean, right?
Yeah. I mean, the truth is that the Swiss franc would be a more reliable currency, but it's just not so widely used.
Right. So, sorry, one of the things that I wanted to sort of get at, another use case, and again, I'm on a little bit of a discovery here by talking to you because it's quite interesting and I think it's extraordinary. But I mean, this is really a use case for things when inflation is just out of control. Is black market? It's not really. I guess it's black market, but you're paying each other outside of the system by using the cryptocurrency, as opposed to going inside of the system and using either your bank card or a CBDC or some government issued dollar. Is that kind of what?
Exactly. It's almost a form of what we'd call agorism or parallel economy, where it's not necessarily illegal, but you're just not participating in the formal institutions. And many times that is necessary. So for example, let's say Canada has a more extensive censorship regime than it already has right now. and you want to get a VPN, but you don't want anyone to know about that. It's so much nicer to pay for that with a cryptocurrency to a foreign VPN provider than with Canadian dollars through your bank account where it's easily tracked.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I wouldn't know anything about paying a foreign VPN.
What does that stand for? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah. No,
but
the times we live in. Yeah.
There's just one other thing about Venezuela that people might not know, but back in the 1990s, there was actually hope that Venezuela would become a financial capital of the Americas, much like Panama City or Santiago, Chile. So there was all this hope, and maybe it can happen. I don't know. Maybe there can be some kind of turnaround, and actually, because the financial center would be so new, everything would be starting almost from scratch. Yeah. They could adopt decentralized finance in a more aggressive fashion.
Mm-hmm. Decentralized finance, can you explain that just a bit?
Yeah, well, basically, what I will just be technical for a little while, but what basically is behind the cryptocurrencies is the technology called blockchain, which is mainly a distributed ledger. And the thing is that no one controls it, but there are different people, or more specifically equipments around the world that have the information, especially for the decentralized cryptocurrencies. So blockchain can hold and can support cryptocurrencies, but it can also support other applications. Basically, it can support anything that consists on registries, and finances consist on registries. So you can have the secondary markets, you can have digital versions of financial assets which are called tokens, and all of these can be transacted through the blockchain. And when you do this, basically you're talking about decentralized finance.
I see.
Where these applications basically work through smart contracts, which are like computer programs that work in the blockchain, and they do not have banks, they do not have central authorities controlling it, but it's like the algorithms that provide the service and the opportunity to transact.
Yeah, I just want to go ahead, Bruce.
Yeah, can I just ask you a question about blockchain? Just that, and then I'll let you talk, Fergus, here. Someone explained to me a blockchain is essentially a spreadsheet. Is that a basic way to say what this is what a blockchain kind of looks like?
Yes, I basically explain like that as well. I usually explain it like a spreadsheet that you have different pages.
Cells?
Yeah, not only cells but pages. And basically you enter information during a moment, and then you lock that page, and then you go to order. But at the beginning of the new page, you put a registry that basically contains cryptographically everything that is in the previous one. So in that way, you provide the security that it has. And that is the reason why we have been talking that with cryptocurrency, you have a safeguard for censorship, and you can be the owner of your money, because the registry that was created, I don't know, in Bitcoin in 2011 is basically also registered in the block that is creating right now, like the page of the spreadsheet that is created right now.
Yeah.
So that is the security behind. And also, just to say one thing about decentralized finance, basically the blockchain system emulates everything or improves what already exists in the traditional finances. So that is what is like developing in these times, and can be even more disruptive in the future.
Oh, that's good. Fergus?
Yeah. No, I just, as you can tell from what Paz is saying, and some of it, to be frank, I do not understand, but it just underlines the importance that going forward, computer science literacy will be more and more important, because we're basically going to be navigating a more maybe complex world with many opportunities that you can either just sit back and be passive about it and just go through your CIBC or whatever it may be, or you can really engage with it, increase your literacy, and find where there are opportunities. Because the thing is, all this, let's say, technical these technical foundations are only going to grow in sophistication and opportunity over time. We're still in early days, but I just think it's a very exciting time, mate, because
I do too.
For so long, I mean, there are all these gatekeepers and middlemen in the financial sector who just basically are a waste of space, and they collect, and they are a drag on opportunity, investment returns, and the like. And I'm optimistic that this decentralized finance is really going to change this and create basically a peer-to-peer approach to finance, which will be amazing.
And we can let all the bankers grab their cement blocks and jump to the bottom of the river. Yes, they can.
Well, it's not an accident that they have the biggest buildings in the country, right? You go to the major cities like Toronto, and they're enormous buildings because the banking system is rewarding them. They have incredible regulatory capture and protection. And like I said, I'd just love to see this more decentralized in the hands of the people.
Well, we just had experienced it. I'm sure that you're well aware of that, Fergus and Paz, with the silver market, because I'm a huge silver bug. When the banks needed a what is it called, a bailout in the middle of the night. I can't remember what it's called, but apparently it's $76 billion again, whereas was shoveled into these large banks over.
Is this the Canadian banks?
No. This is
US?
Morgan Stanley and JP Morgan and some of the other big banks that they a repo. That's what it's called, a repo window.
People don't seem to realize that these big investment firms, they are deeply crony connected. And I became more aware of this when I was a fiscal researcher in North Carolina, and the secretary of the Treasury Secretary of State was her campaign was funded by major investment firms. And then basically, as soon as she got in there, she would have all the pension investments go through those firms, and they just collect 2% on the billions of dollars. And all these minions of the state didn't realize that they were just being creamed.
Milked.
Milked. Yeah.
My goodness. Okay, Paz, I want to ask you one more thing about blockchain. And I mentioned it before we hit record, but we are about to venture into creating our own nation here in Alberta. We're going to secede from Canada, and I know my viewers, they've all heard this many times, but this is the path that we're going on. And when you're looking at completely restructuring everything in from governments to education to everything, one of the things that I see so critical is the transparency that people talk about, and it's all usually just talk. They say that they're being transparent, but really I think, and I asked you, is there a possibility to use the blockchain for government so that we can say, okay, the small government, everything is going to go in the blockchain so everybody can see everything that's happening as far as our representatives are concerned? Is that something that is a possibility?
Yes, it is totally possible. Actually, as I told you before, blockchain can basically create applications for everything that is registry, and basically the state is a group of registries of different things, so it can happen. There are use cases in the real life. You have one that is Estonia, that works with a private blockchain. So of course it is not very decentralized and distributed, but it is working, and actually it has provided a lot of development to Estonia. And there are also more anarcho-capitalistic initiatives such as BitNation and Pangora that basically you can register as a citizen of these digital nations in the internet. But what it is interesting is that here you can create your own digital nations, and a lot of people or the users of these platforms are also creating different governance models. So in this way, you can have even some experiments that can contrast, for instance, democracy that has like the advantages, but also a lot of problems.
Right.
And they are already experimenting with these things. So this is actually possible. And basically, also one important thing from blockchain is the digital identification that you can have. There are digital wallets for these, as they work the same as the crypto wallets, but basically you here have the keys to keep all the digital ID and information that is created. So this is actually even more important for privacy and to avoid censorship, not just in the financial terms, but in every term. So it is very, very
Paz,
that's very exciting.
Paz, do you want to touch upon the current state of, let's say, private sector application with product tracing? Because wouldn't that be a similar use where all these people who want to, let's say, have organic or environmentally friendly products, and you can trace from farmer to plate or wherever it may be, and they use a form of decentralized ledger for that?
Yeah, actually, there's a very interesting case here in Ecuador, and it's the shrimp. The Ecuadorian shrimp is now the global leader shrimp, and it happened like in the last 5 years. So it is amazing how it became so important in the world. And it was because the shrimp producers implemented blockchain. So what it happens is that basically in all the shrimp pools, they have sensors, and sensors are connected with IoT, Internet of Things, and then provide a lot of information to a blockchain, which provide the traceability of the shrimps from the pools to the city countries. And this has also got like a lot of data from the consumers, and basically they created the best shrimp that consumers want to eat around the world, with no antibiotics and things like that, very organic, very like healthy and things like that. Sustainable, everything. So it's a very, I mean, this happens in other industries. Maersk, for instance, the shipment enterprise has a blockchain also in the ports and things like that. So there is in more industries. In Peru, for instance, they use for the alpaca sweaters, because there's a lot of scams there. But yeah, the shrimp, I not because it is Ecuadorian, but because in 5 years they became the global leader. And I think that is actually very interesting, because you usually take more time, right, with a very little country.
Yeah. Well, it just shows that these things can work. And in the case of Alberta, for example, you might be particularly proud of your beef. And interesting how, like I said, you had the food professor on. Knowing where your food comes from and having some confidence is huge, because I do not have confidence when I'm in Canada, to be frank, where my meat comes from. And also, I mean, I don't know what the Alberta Prosperity Project's position is on this. I think at the outset, they want to just use the US dollar. But Paz, maybe you want to advocate for just no central bank at all and just let people choose which currency they want to adopt?
Sure, that would be the ideal scenario. As you say before, the first step is to educate people to learn how to use digital tools, not necessarily just understand crypto, but to have all this knowledge. And one important thing, and maybe it has been kind of a barrier in the last years in Venezuela, is of course connectivity as well. So there continues to be a challenge, even if in some countries like the United States and Canada, maybe you have almost full connectivity. There are other countries that are having problems and troubles with governments that are still like in this problem. So without these things that unfortunately depend a lot in this moment from governments, it is difficult to go to a no central bank scenario, but that would be ideal. And also one important thing I believe there is at least fight against the CBDC, because CBDCs can allow central banks to have their own wallets, basically their own bank accounts, and engage directly with the people. And that would be tremendously risky. for our economy. And so, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. It's the very antithesis of actual decentralized currency to have the central banks holding your money directly in their own accounts. I mean, that would be just tremendous centralized power.
I'm just looking up something.
Well,
Just give me one second here.
the one example that Paz has worked on, and which we've discussed at length in our own work, is Panama, which has not had a central bank for its entire history. Now, they do have a currency called the Balboa, which basically matches the US dollar, because everyone just gravitated towards using the US dollar, which I'm assuming would happen in Alberta too, that people would just use the US dollar, or let's say New Zealand were to get rid of the bank, people would just use the Australian dollar, what is most readily available. But in the long run, I think people would actually consider alternative forms of payment. It's hard to predict because we're in such a, let's say, a rapidly changing economy now that maybe the US dollar will not be the most trusted thing in 10, 20 years' time. It's hard to say.
You know what? I like that idea, and it's definitely something that we should be taking forward. Is decentralization? I know that I'm sure you've heard me talk to this other guest, Brett Oland, and he's the banker from the CEO from Bow Valley Credit Union.
Yes,
he's put together. I think a paper on actually having an Alberta currency, having an Alberta dollar. So, but I think that there was a transition. There was a transition period where we did use the U.S. dollar. I don't know. I haven't talked to him about that.
Was it Modry? Is it Dennis Modry? What's his first name?
Yeah, Dennis Modry.
Yeah. He mentioned it in one of your shows that initially you would probably just use the US dollar in transition to having an Alberta currency of its own, which may make sense. See, this is where it depends on what your goals are. If you want to have more, let's say, currency autonomy, you would have your own currency. So Panama is basically, they're helpless. And even Ecuador, they use the US dollar. If the US government prints more money, monetizes its debt, they pay an inflation tax to the US government. I mean, they're a bit hapless there. Yeah.
No, I think that the idea, and I'm not part of the APP at all, but I do know that we've talked many times about using the US dollar just because we obviously want to get switched over to our own nation ASAP. We don't want to, we don't want to diddle around and wait for Canada to roll in their 3 tanks. So 3 tanks and one battleship over to Vancouver. Anyway.
Well, it would build a good, let's say, relationship with the United States, because right now it is true that the United States is sensitive about the dollar losing its reserve status.
Sure.
And is this in your book, Paz? I forget. We've written so much about these cryptocurrencies lately, but the way that these stable coins, which tend to match the US dollar, are inadvertently helping to prop up the US dollar when it is vulnerable. Do you want to touch upon that, Paz, about the status of the US dollar? Yeah.
Yes. Well, actually, what is happening is that stable coins do have some central authority or central organization behind. So they can be regulated, and of course, regulators also control that they have the backing reserve that they need behind, so they are constantly monitored. And what happens is that there is like a political strategy behind. So yeah, there is the financial regulators, and in the United States want to make it relevant for governments. So in that way, for instance, that this happened in Bolivia when the crisis that I told you, basically the Bolivian government started getting stable coins to put in the reserve because they did not have gold and they did not have US dollars, the bills. So this is something that the same regulators and the same politicians in the United States are trying to promote for other countries that are especially in trouble. And basically at the end of the day, these stable coins could become the way to have reserves. And not only in the governments, this is happening in the governments in this way, but there are also corporations getting cryptos. And of course, they have their holdings on Bitcoin and things like that. But they also have holdings because of the price volatility of cryptocurrencies. They also have holdings in stable coins. So it becomes like having savings in US dollars.
Yeah, is the Bow Valley Credit Union chief executive's plan to have some sort of stable coin that's tied to the value of crude or the value of gold, or
I don't know.
just that? Yeah, because I assume, I mean, this is where I don't, so much is going to happen. I'm just like you, Bruce. I'm incredibly excited about this prospect this year, and someone like Steve Hanke and Paz Gomez coming up there to give support with the currency options, I think makes a lot of sense. Now, Steve Hanke has promoted almost the best of both worlds, having a currency board where you would have an Alberta dollar, right? So you'd have your own authority, but you would just tie it to the US dollar where you'd keep the value the same. So that would build the confidence and it would be almost interchangeable. But then let's say the US just starts to inflate away, right? You could remove yourself. Yeah, you're not beholden to them. Yeah.
Paz, I have one more question, and this is coming from, I feel like a newbie when I'm listening to you through some of this, and if you could see me, I'm putting my hand over my head because it seems like it's kind of going over my head. But I want to ask you about stable coins because I mean I've heard the term for a long time, but I don't really understand it. Can you explain it to me like I'm 5? Because I am. Right here, I'm 5.
Sure. Well, basically, these are cryptocurrencies that are going to be developed in the blockchain, just like I explained before. You can transact in these spreadsheet, basically. And however, they have a fixed value that is pegged to something.
I see.
Usually they peg the
So when
value
Fergus said
to
that
US dollars, yes,
right.
but there is also some stable coins pegged to gold and
or
also
oil,
or even there are some that combine different assets and then you have the price. So of course, the one of the US dollar, because the US dollar is the dominant currency to put prices, are the ones that are getting traction. And yes, to have these, there is the way to make it also with the smart contracts, so very computing systems, but these are not so stable yet because they need a lot of liquidity, and there are not so much, even if this is growing, there are not so much users and liquidity in the crypto ecosystem. So the most important and that are relevant right now are the ones that are centralized and that they have reserves outside the blockchain. And that is where the risks starts, because you are talking again of centralized systems.
Now, clarify, Paz, for me. Do they actually have? They don't actually have physical US dollar cash. They have US treasuries, correct? So basically,
yes.
Yeah, the US government owns. So they're basically buying US debt.
Or they have vaults. They have vaults as well. It depends. So for
Both.
instance, Tether has vaults that are constantly monitored. And there is Binance Coin that it emerged and became one of the top cryptos in terms of market capitalization, which is kind of the most related with the government. So this is the one that, for instance, is going to be more present in reserves.
So just for my newbie brain, you gave me two names. So Tether is one, and Binance is. Those are two examples of stable coins. Is that right?
Yeah, Tether, you usually know it as USDT.
Yes.
And the Binance is usually known as USDC, like USD.
Okay. Yeah, I know the ones. I know it well. Okay. Well, is there anything else that you want to tell us about the book? I'm going to bring it up here so people can see it again.
Well, the book was released today on
Oh yeah, that's
Amazon.
right. Congratulations. Hang on one second. I've got a sound for you here. Where is it now? I'm looking for it. Why can't I find it?
Well, I want to, yeah.
Yeah, so the book was released today on Amazon. You have the ebook plain version. There is also a print edition paperback, which is more fancy. It has more designs and everything, so you can enjoy the reading there as well. And we will release it on Substack for subscribers in different articles that you can access tomorrow. Yeah, basically what I told is that I started with a empirical approach to the cryptocurrencies. Then I did my studies on that for the master's degree, and I have seen from the theoretical to the practical part what are the pros, cons, the constraints, the advantages when you feel that you are talking about something that no one understands, or you do not understand. And what I have tried to do in the book is to make a practical and easy to understand guide for approaching more to the ecosystem, to cryptocurrencies, and yeah, of course, using liberty and use cases for liberty as the main argument of the book.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll just say that, obviously I'd love people to buy the book and engage and learn from Paz. Beyond this, just like you, Bruce, you're building a community of people who really care about freedom in Alberta, and I love your mission. Our mission is to promote financial sovereignty, or we say paths to freedom. Mm-hmm. So, this is such an evolving space. I would love for people to go to econamericas.com or econamericas.substack.com and join our community. And if you join as a founding member, we can send you a copy of this book, and you'll then be able to engage and discuss and be more of it. Because I think books, they're great, but people want more. They want to ask questions. They want to really be involved. And I think that's where the Econamericas community or space can help with that.
That's fantastic. I appreciate both of you. That has been very interesting of a conversation, and so much is going on these days. It's wonderful to have you guys and to really try to work through some of the things that we're all experiencing at this time. So it's really wonderful.
Yeah, as you get bigger, Bruce, as we all, let's say, our profile rises and we become more threatening to the status quo, I think this becomes more and more prescient as we become more influential. Yeah. As we have more of a target on our backs, to be frank.
Target on our back is probably better than saying that that I'm a big shot, because I'm not. A target on my back makes a lot more sense. And just pray for us and wish us well here in Alberta, you too, because we need the I guess encouragement, because we're going to have a lot of forces against us. And
100%. Yeah, it really is people versus the parasitic overlord class in Ottawa. And and Paz is, yep.
But no, I was just going to say that we're all facing this. We see it happening in Venezuela. We see it happening in Iran. We see it happening, I'm sure, in Ecuador. We saw it in El Salvador. We saw it in where's Milei again? Where's that again? Argentina. Yeah. Every place, the United States, you guys are being ripped apart because of the two sides that are not seeing the enemy, the actual enemy. We're seeing it here in Canada. There's people that want freedom, but then there's people that really love sucking up to their king. I don't know.
The challenge you face is you're not even on one of the sides, basically. Like, Alberta doesn't even have a seat at the table, basically. You're just kind of ignored. Like, as we all know, that the election is already over before the counting gets to Alberta. So
the crazy thing is that I'm sure if you're seeing anything on X is that the people that hate us, the people that have sucked us dry, the people that have milked Alberta to the death, now are screaming at us, we can't leave. You can't leave. Well, we can actually.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We have it in the
can.
Constitution. Yeah. It's fine.
No, it's just, the thing is, if, look, I'm very excited and optimistic that Alberta can achieve this, and it will just send shockwaves around the world like almost nothing before. The rejection of this centralized authority or centralized predation would be incredible, and it would inspire so many other places to reclaim their freedom.
Well, it's really timely that you've come up with this book, Paz, at this time, because we are all facing this issue, and CBDCs are obviously hanging over our head. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. The digital IDs, the digital dollars that the governments want to shove down our throats are the reason why you and your book, I think, will be a massive hit.
Thank you, Bruce. Yes, and actually, well, from commenting what you were saying, one thing that I have learned from the period of authoritarianism in Ecuador is that it raises awareness on the importance of freedom, and people remember why it is important. So there is where people start valuing more what is freedom and all the things. So I do believe that is important for the book, for your initiative, and
It almost might be the silver lining of the crackdown on the trucker convoy, that suddenly people realized they had enemies in Ottawa. They became aware of their vulnerability.
Mm-hmm. Amen to that. Well, thank you so much. If the two of you don't mind sticking around, we're going to wrap it up, and I'm just going to say goodbye to the audience. If you don't mind sticking around for a little powwow after we say goodbye to everyone.
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate both of you. Again, this is timely. It's really important information, and we have to get educated, like Fergus and Paz both have said, and they're hoping to help us to obviously learn more about our options in regard to liberty and protecting our family. So get the book and pay attention. econamericas.com. You can go to their website and get some more information. So thank you very much for joining us, both of you. Amen.
It's our privilege. It's our privilege. Thank you, man.
Amen. All right, everyone. So make sure to share this out. I continue to say this. You've got to wake up more Canadians. We've got to hit the drum louder and louder because they're still sleeping. I appreciate you being here. God bless you all for taking the time to watch this, and make sure to get it out there. As I always say, let's stay sane together. Keep your head on a swivel. This is Bruce, and I'm out of here. Thank you so much for watching Unscrew the News. I appreciate your participation in freedom in Canada. Share this information and help others to wake up. God bless.